morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. And good evening, everyone, according to the time of your access to this facilitation or program. I welcome you once again to Art Students Connect, where we create to influence. At Art Students Connect, it is a platform, or call it a forum, that engages with different fields, or we can call them different disciplines of art. In Art Students Connect, we deal specifically in art and design at secondary level. We deal with art and design at tertiary level. When I speak about tertiary level, specifically, I'm looking at colleges, institutions, and tertiaries, institutions that are offering art at certificate and diploma level. We do not only look at tertiary and secondary levels, but we also advance and consider or put into consideration what we call university art. That is art at diploma level. So from art at diploma and the bachelor level. However, we don't exceed to go to the master's level. We stop it at bachelor's level. Then we also focus on commercializing art, because the essence of what you are doing or what you are trying to do is that in the end of everything, you will have to earn. You have to earn what you get. You have to earn from what you are doing. So we look at art also in a commercial way. In as much as we're looking at the basics from different levels, that's how we look at art. At the moment, we are focusing on the UCE art and design session, and that is the senior for art. So feel free to connect to our YouTube channel, that is Bindya, Kenneth Art Students Connect on YouTube. Then on Facebook, it is Art Students Connect, and on TikTok, it is Art Students Connect, where we believe that we educate, build, skill, and transform. So we create to influence. So at this moment, dear friends, allow me go straight to our major aim of today's facilitation. I remain Kenneth Bindya Peter, your coordinator at Art Students Connect, where we create to influence. In our previous facilitations, we have looked at art history and studio technology, that is the theory, and our focus in the first facilitation was on art history, where we considered the different art periods and artworks, looking at the different stages. You can refer to what it is and you look at exactly what we shared about. Then, but as we're looking at art and design, paper one comprises of two sections. That is art history, which takes up section A, and studio technology, which takes up section B. And when you speak about the scoring depends on the examiners, or what has been set as a mark. It can be remember, we have 4 items that are examined in paper 1. However, in each section, as a student at any level, secondary level, you have to choose one item. You have to choose one item from each section. Answer one item from each section. In a total, you are required to answer 2 examination items in all. One from section A and another from section B. So when you look at our next slide, they're trying to speak about what exactly section B focuses on. And on your screen, you can find out that they put it in red, studio technology. However, for the sake of our friends who have not been having access to some of the information or the services regarding studio technology, allow me elaborate. I'm going to be more detailed to some extent to explain what studio technology refers to. On your screen, we are seeing that studio technology refers to the processes and the techniques an artist goes through to produce an artwork involving the preparation and experimentation of different materials and tools, typically in a studio. Then they're telling us that studio technology involves thinking, planning, selecting, and manipulation of materials and tools to produce an artwork. So one of the things they are focusing on here, it is the processes and techniques. They are looking at the preparation and experimentation. They are also looking at materials and tools. We can further go ahead to say that we are putting into consideration what we call the methods of production of studio technology. To us who are still not contented with what studio technology is, let me break it down like this. Any artwork that is practical, that is hands-on, that is what we refer to as studio technology. So when you come to studio technology theory, anything you're doing practically is assessed or it is examined in terms of theory. So what they require from us as we are referring to studio technology is that exactly what we have been doing in a practical. For example, if you have been looking at maybe sculpture, printing, whatever, there is a practical part of it. So the entire processes, the entire techniques you are using in printing, the entire preparations you are using in printing, the experimentations, the different materials and tools, that is what exactly you get, and you put it in the what? In the theory part. That's why the paper is called Art History and Studio Technology Theory. Then the paper 2 is what we refer to as Art Making Practical. So they are not expecting you to come and replicate the practical into the theory. Rather, you put a writing. It is in terms of writing, essays, paragraphs, sentences, trying to give an understanding of what studio technology refers to. So on top of that, on your screen, like I said, I'm going to be more of detailed and I'm going to show us a lot of things because we have friends who will still refer to this because they have not been studying studio technology. So we have in what we call a studio. We cannot speak about studio technology and fail to speak about a studio. When we speak about a studio, simply in our language or our simple language is what we call an art room. When you consider what an art room is, maybe I will show you some clip of what an art room can replicate. But when you consider what an art room is, we are looking at a place where artworks are made from, or a workplace for artists. In commercial, we can call them art spaces. That is my art space where I work from. So, however, the emphasis of the two words, studio and technology. Studio specifically is a place, a setting where you operate from as an artist in production of artworks, or where artworks are displayed artistically. So some of the relevances or the importances of an art room or a studio are what I want to briefly touch, and we go on. Here I'm looking at bullet 1. On your screen, we are having that learners' creativity is greatly improved through regular contact with a variety of tools and materials. One of the basics of studio technology, or one of the basics of understanding, is having experiential knowledge. Experiential knowledge. When a learner comes into regular contact with tools and materials, they have an experience of how applicable these tools and materials can be used. This is what we refer to as we grow in art, that you as a student, you understand a material. Basically, when we are starting out with painting, rarely do we give students to start with acrylic paintings. One, acrylic paintings dry faster. An exposure to wind for like 5 minutes, you will find it already what? Dried up. However, they are also water-based. But when you come to colors, like for example, powder colors, when you come to powder colors, I will not show us the different things. However, I'm having most of them here in my art room or my art studio. So when you come to powder colors are water-based also. However, these ones, you can recycle them. Even when they are dry, you can recycle them. Unfortunately, for the acrylic colors, you cannot recycle them when they are dry. If they are dry, they are gone and they are gone. So, when a learner gets regular contact with a tool or material, they become conversant, they become comfortable with such tools and materials. That is one of the purposes or the relevances of an art studio. So, learners develop their level of concentration to tasks. What do I refer to here? The level of concentration. When we look at the level of concentration, one, what brings the concentration? When I come to an art studio and I'm looking around, looking at the different pieces, in art we call them masterpieces. One, I get that concentration to focus because the environment is conducive. The environment is convenient. So it gives me a certain level of concentration because what I'm doing is related to what is around me. The environment is conducive. So then the next bullet, we are saying level of skills among learners is improved through hands-on experience. Level of skills, similarly to what I spoke about, the first part of creativity, that's how it operates. Then lastly, learners greatly improve on the basic language of art. When you come to the art, when you come to an art atmosphere, there is a certain language we use. For example, I cannot look at a piece of tie and dye or printing. I cannot look at a design and I call it, that design is beautiful. No, in art we use a word, for example, aesthetics. Aesthetics, which means looking nice, looking good, instead of us using beautiful. In art, for example, if I'm dealing with elements and principles, I will look at the principle of contrast. But in the normal English, the normal language, I can use the word difference. For someone who is not doing art, it is very okay for them to come up with a word like difference in color, difference in texture, difference in size. But when you come to the basic language of art, I'm mandated to use words like contrast in color, contrast in texture, contrast in size. When you come to some words, you can find words like printing, squeegee, tie and dye. All this is the basic language we tend to use. So those are some of the relevances, the advantages of coming into an art area or studio. So allow me rush through this. I may not go through them, but good practice of art studio. For example, that is regular cleaning of the studio. It must be clean. Keep the furniture in order to avoid commotion. Then artistic display of finished works. I could probably show you what is around me here right now. Because as I'm looking around, I'm having a section for art history. I'm having a section what I call the art department mood board, where all the activities are photographically using a camera are taken to display what our students do. And when that is done, it depicts inclusive learning, that when a student finds themselves on such the departmental mood board, they are inspired that they are part of the what? The department. Here I'm having a section for the sample works of the teachers. I'm having a section of the library here, our art room library, where we keep our textbooks and all reference materials. Then I'm having a section where we put our colors and brushes. Then I'm having a section where we put our fabric, those are pastes, tie and dye, squeegees, all pieces, whatever used in printing. A section of art history here, a section of painting, a section of drawing, a section of graphics there, then a section of 3D works. That is where I'm having the sculpture and pottery work. Then I'm having drawing again, then multimedia, then I'm having the printing tables. So that is specifically how it is. Some of the things I've spoken about, the proper storage of artworks, it is okay. Then let us rush down here. Adequate materials and tools, we have enough. So rules and regulations, actually I should have rules and regulations. I think I'll give us a sample. Here. Let me try to show us partly what I'm trying to mean about, because some people may not hearken, they may not. So when I spoke about the art mood board, this is what I was trying to refer to, the art department mood board. That is what we are seeing there, where we put all the different photographs of the students as they're doing their works. So when I spoke about the rules and regulations, this is what I'm having exactly here before you. So when I spoke about the section of 3D artworks, where I'm having sculpture and pottery, this is what I was referring to. So when I spoke about the section of graphics, this is what I was referring to. So when I spoke about a section of painting, this is what I was referring to. And when I'm referring to a section of history of art, this is what I was referring to. When I referred to tools and materials, this is a section where I'm looking at all the different types of colors, the brushes, whatever. This is what I was referring to. So when I spoke about a mini library, a small library in the art room, this is exactly what I was speaking about, where I have a shelf handling all the different books. Now this is book 1, this is learner's book 2, book 3, book 4 is there. Scarves, then we have these different textbooks here, this is that, then we have this. These are for art history. Now these are for the syllabuses, new curriculums, and these are for elements and principles of art. So that is exactly what we are referring to. So I think that's just a clear image. Like I said, I'm going to be more elaborative. I'm not going to go direct to the question, but I want us to have an understanding of what takes around studio technology. So we're lit with both natural and artificial light. We have enough light, say, in our room. Then you should have space for display of artworks. I've been showing you already something. Then you should have the well-stocked library with the reminders. I've showed you something. So that is what we can refer to. So now allow us go back to where we started from. Hopefully we are having a picture of what studio technology engages or evolves. So they are telling us that section B of studio technology, that this section focuses on different crafts. When we speak about the different crafts, we want to understand what are those different crafts. So if I'm going to attempt section B, the difference with the section B, which is studio technology, and section A, which is art history, is that in studio technology, we are looking at the practical part of art being examined theoretically. And for the art history, we are looking at the different art periods that have existed, such as the prehistoric art, the ancient Roman art, the ancient Greek art, the ancient Egyptian art, and we're looking at things like the Renaissance art, where we're looking at things like the modern art, the medieval art, we are looking at things like the Baroque art, all that is art history, contemporary art. So all that is what? Art history. But when you come to section B, like I've said, we are specifically looking at studio technology. And I'd emphasize what studio technology is and what encompasses or what is surrounded with studio technology. That's what I'm trying to be looking at aside. So here they're telling us, so back to how it is examined. They are telling us that this section focuses on the different crafts, that is one. It also focuses on the steps and procedures, that is two. It also focuses on the materials and the tools used, that is three. And it also focuses on the methods and the techniques used, that is four. Then they're also looking at the importances of such crafts. Now, to my friends who have been inquiring, because I've been receiving some of your calls, some of your messages, our friends from Northern Uganda, Eastern Uganda, you have been saying that you have not had any idea, you have been green about the different aspects of studio technology. Now, here our focus is, we want to understand what are those different crafts this section focuses on. Like I said, I'm going to make it elaborative for each of us to at least pick something. So let us now consider, what are those different crafts? And if they're speaking about different crafts, what does a craft mean? What does a craft mean? On your screen, they are telling us that a craft is an artwork skillfully made by hand by changing workable materials from their original state to a functional or decorative state. For example, changing clay into a pot. So they're trying to give you the aspect what a craft is. A craft is an artwork skillfully made by hand. However, it is changing workable materials. Remember, as we are dealing with studio technology, anything can be a material. Anything can be a material. Studio technology is open to creativity, is open to invention, it is open to innovation. So you as an art student or you as an artist, you can define what you can refer to as a workable material. So what do you refer to as a workable material? Hopefully you're getting the picture of what a craft is, because they're telling us that this section focuses on the different crafts. That is one. It focuses on the different crafts. Now we are having an understanding of what a craft is. And we are saying that a craft is an artwork. And what is an artwork? Anything that is skillfully made by changing workable materials from their original state. I can use polythene bags as a workable material. I can use clay as a workable material. I can use wood as a workable material. hopefully the image is sticking in our minds. So there are said it focuses on the different crafts. So the different crafts, which are these ones? On your screen, I'm trying to display for you the different crafts. The first is sculpture. I'm not going to go deep into explaining what all these are, but we have sculpture. And sculpture, as a discipline in craft or art, it can be taken as a 2D or 3-dimensional work. Under sculpture, I'm going to touch them briefly because it can be examinable. So sculpture can come as an all-round sculpture. When I mean an all-round sculpture, I'm looking at the possibility of you as an artist or as someone who loves art, moving around this artwork to have all the angles in your view. When we speak about relief sculpture is specifically where we have some parts of the surface higher than others. Then to some point, it is basically on a 2D surface. Then to some point, we have some other parts of the sculpture that are low in others. That's why we can have now, we call it under relief sculpture. We can speak about the high relief sculpture. We can speak about the low relief sculpture. And also probably can speak about the sunken what? Sunken sculpture. Then we have in what we call ceramics and pottery. Ceramics and pottery, that is basically using clay to make decorative or functional pieces of work. That is okay. All of us, we have seen vases, we have seen whatever, stoves, whatever. It depends on what you want to do as an artist. Then they are telling us there is collage and mosaic. Under collage and mosaic, here we refer to the use, for collage alone, it is using various materials to come up with an artwork. Then when you come to mosaic specifically, you use one material. If it is fiber, banana fiber you're using, it's that. If it is fabric you're using, it's that. That is for mosaic. Then we have weaving, where we have to get things like the webs and wefts, whatever. That is the weaving side. Where we can use things as doormats, that is okay. And under weaving, then we can come to basketry, that one is open to us. Then we can also look at puppets. We have seen those small dolls. Then we are having masks, paper mache, includes smashing paper to do artworks. Then we have leather work. I think all of us understand leather. We have ornaments. Then we have ornaments. Most so we can take it as beadwork. Then we have spinning. Then here we have also fabric decoration as a craft. And under fabric decoration, that's speaking about printing, batik, embroidery, tie-and-dye, applique, and patchwork. To briefly speak about printing, under printing, I'm a bit fast because I want us to go back to the other side. Under printing, that's why we have things like block of printing. Block of printing, the design or the pattern is raised high above the what? Is raised high above the surface. Then we have what we call stencil printing. I should speak about it. Where we have stencil printing, when you consider stencil printing, we are looking at where there is a sheet, a plain sheet, hard sheet, where our patterns are cut or our motif is cut. Then also we have intaglio printing. Intaglio printing is a reverse of block printing. In intaglio printing, the design is dug within the surface. But for block printing, the design or pattern is above the surface. Then we have what we call screen printing. And under screen printing, that's why we use a wire mesh and come up with things like photo emulsion, which help us come up with what? With our design on the mesh for easier printing. Then we have embroidery. Embroidery, that's the use of what? The use of threads come up with a design on a fabric. Then tie and dye. Tie and dye also comes in a different ways. That's specifically it comes in two ways, where we can use dyes that can use hot water and dyes that can come up with what? Cold water. So that is tie and dye, where we can say, okay, I'm going to use one color, I'm going to use 2 colors, 3 colors. It comes in different stages. I'll speak more about it. Then we have applique. Under applique as a fabric decoration technique, here we get different fabrics and join them together to make one heavy decorative piece of fabric that is applique. Then patchwork, you get, for example, offcuts, fabric offcuts. You add them on other fabric to create a design. However, as I've spoken about these different crafts, remember the other side they're telling us that fabric decoration, no, they're telling us that studio technology focuses on the different crafts. And the different crafts are here, what I'm trying to highlight about. I've explained the craft. I'm looking at sculpture as a craft, ceramics, collage and mosaic, weaving, basketry, puppets, paper mache, leatherwork. All these are what? Are crafts. And they're telling us paper 1 section B focuses on different crafts, meaning that any part of these ones I've been explaining about is examinable. So as a student, you need to have knowledge about sculpture, because they may not bring for you sculpture in a round. They may not bring for you relief sculpture. They may not say this is what you're bringing, but in the end, they can try to bring for you a sunken what? A sunken relief sculpture. They can bring for you a high relief sculpture. And they're telling you to interpret what you're. So you need to understand that this is what I'm having. So for example, now come to ceramics. You need to understand the different techniques. I'm going to speak about them when you get the other side. So what am I trying to say here? Have knowledge about all these crafts if you want to pass. So under crafts, we have the different types of crafts. So these ones are categorized according to their use and final product. So we have what we call the functional crafts. Functional crafts made for use in daily life. Leatherwork, we have those belts, weaving, we have those door mats and mats, whatever. Basketry, we have seen the use of baskets on daily basis. Pottery, I've seen cups, whatever, plates, pots, whatever. Then we have decorative crafts. Under decorative crafts, we have mosaic, collage, sculpture, pottery, basketry, masks. And be reminded that the functional crafts and the decorative crafts, they interchange. They interchange. Because you may ask, why am I seeing pottery in functional crafts? And why am I seeing pottery in decorative what? Crafts? It is a two-way. Some crafts are two-way. We need to have that in mind. Then we have textile crafts, tie and dye, crocheting, embroidery, knitting. For knitting and crocheting, most of us have seen those small baby clothes, where the stockings of babies, where they get different threads, and they come up with such attires. I've already spoken about applique. Then batik is a wax resist method, where we have to use wax to come up with design. If you don't have wax, you cannot access wax in batik. You can use cassava flour to act as your resistant as you are applying the colors or the dyes. So let us continue. Let us continue. So allow me try to rush a bit and go to the. I want us to go back to the other side. I'm going to look at this, but this is what we are having. So importance of the crafts in the society. Importance of the crafts in the society. One of the things they are telling us is that crafts are a source of, crafts are a source of income. They are a source of income. One, they generate what? They generate income which can easily be used for so we are looking at the importance of crafts in our comment. So why am I trying to emphasize? Why am I trying to emphasize this? One is that when you come back to our section B, the last bullet says importance of such crafts. Importance of such crafts. So we need to understand that what is the purpose of what we are doing. So one, they're telling us they are income generating activities, they are a source of employment, serve as a source of tourist attraction. When you come along the Masaka Highway where the equator passes, you'll find a lot of craft work there and it is acting as a tourist attraction. At times you can also go to Entebbe. If you're in Kampala, you can pass via Ntinda. You'll find out such crafts. Then most crafts are used for decoration. This is evident in most of the weddings we see, functions, prom parties, whatever. We can look at that. Then some crafts are used as home appliances like pots, baskets. We have already spoken about this. Then crafts are used for study purposes, just as we are doing right now. Then some are used for entertainment like masks and puppets. That is very open. So this is what exactly also the paper focuses on. So then allow me, after having an idea about the different crafts, allow me now go to the next bullet. This is where we have the steps and procedures. When we speak about steps and procedures, we are basically looking at the process that leads us to production of a specific craft. Production of a specific craft. So one, they are telling us the different crafts, then steps and procedures. So we have identified the different crafts. Now we have to look at the steps and procedures. One, the steps and procedures, in most of the cases, they relate to one another. They relate to one another. For example, let me look at pottery or ceramics as a craft. One, my first step will be identifying or carrying out a pilot study on where the material, which is clay, can be found. That is my first what? My first step. Then the next is that I will now excavate or carry out excavation. That is, dig out the clay from its source, that is the swamp. That is step 2. Here I'm looking at how best I can get the material that's going to help me make pottery, because I cannot make ceramics or pottery without the material. So I want us as students to understand how these things operate. That after identifying the craft, what steps do you follow to come up with a product that is under that craft? So we are looking at now another step. From collecting it from this source, now what I'm going to do, I can sort out impurities. Sorting out impurities, what do we mean by this? In this, we are looking at removing the unwanted. We are looking at removing the unwanted pieces. For example, sticks, metals, glasses, polythene bags, fabrics, bones, stones, sorting out those big impurities. After this step, then you have to expose the clay under the sun to have it dried up. Then from drying it, you have to now go to another step, which is grinding it, breaking it into smaller pieces or into powder form. Then from grinding it, we have what we call sieving it. You can sieve it, and on sieving it, you are trying to separate the powdered form from the remaining small impurities. From sieving it, what you do next, you can now add in some small water, and then then you start kneading. So kneading is the next. Kneading helps us make the clay workable or remove the air spaces. Then from this stage, you can get into adjusting. This adjusting format is whereby you get the clay and leave it to mature. Put it under a cavera. Then from this, you can come to wedging, removing, but the wedging will come actually. Let us push the wedging the other side as you are working out on the final process or procedures. So we leave the clay to mature for 3 to 4 days. Then this one will help us know whether the clay is a bit more workable or it has gained its elasticity. So that's part of the steps. So even other crafts, there are different stages or steps that help us to come up with what? A product. So then we come to materials and the tools used. Obviously, you need to understand what a material is and what a tool is. When we speak about tools, specifically these are instruments. Instruments used to make or create artworks. When we come to materials, materials are substances used in making artworks. Remember, materials are used in, substances used in. Then the tools are instruments used to. Materials it is in, then the tools it is to. The same applies to how we can define the elements of art and the principles of art. When we come to the principles of art, these are guiding or guidelines used to create an artwork. Then the elements are building blocks used in making what? An artwork. But then we need to consider something here, that in certain crafts, materials can be tools. So you need to have an understanding of what exactly you are going to refer to. For example, if I'm going to deal with ceramics, a tool in ceramics can be a material in weaving or basketry. Let us take a look at threads. When I get a thread in ceramics, I'm going to use it to cut work from my working surface. But when I get a thread in weaving, I'm going to use it as a material to join up the different parts or materials. So it becomes a material in weaving, but then a tool in ceramics. We need to create a difference as we're dealing with that. Let us now come to methods and techniques. Methods and techniques also differ according to the kind of crafts you are dealing with. Let me take a look at, because someone may be asking, what are methods and what are techniques? What are examples of methods and what are examples of techniques? Let us take a look at pottery, or what we refer to as ceramics. When I look at methods in pottery, I'm looking at slab method, where the clay is made as a flat or in fat-like format, and slabs are cut out. Take a look at the buildings, the storage buildings. That is what we refer to as a slab. So that is a slab method. Then we have what to look at, we can consider as a coiling method. When you consider the coiling method, this is where clay is twisted in cylindrical, long-like structures to come up with a ceramic artwork. Then let us take a look at the pinch method. So pinch method, we have slab method, coiling method. Then look at the potter's wheel method. All those are methods under pottery. But when I consider the techniques under pottery, I'm going to look at glazing, where I'm going to glaze my work. If you know what we call inner, what they smear on the nails of ladies, that is how it looks like, similarly. So I'm having glazing as a decorative technique. So there are methods of producing ceramic work. Now these are techniques of decorating ceramic work. So I'm having another technique which I can refer to as slip trailing, where I will consider my clay and make it more liquidified or porridge-like. And as I get a small piece, or I can get a syringe of a needle, I can get a piece of cavera. If you have been in the bakery sections, how they put those decorative patterns, that is what we refer to as trailing. Okay? You get a small hole on the edge and you pass that trail. You can call it a thread on the what? On the artwork or ceramic work. Then I have what I can call embossing. When I look at embossing, I can design my small pieces of clay. Then I get my slip, which is porridge-like structure. How we get slip? We get clay and mixing. Let me speak about these terms also. We have what we call slip and what we call grog. Grog, it is G-R-O-G. And for grog, what we consider as grog, we get fired clay, or we can fired clay is called B-square, that brown clay, which has already been fired. Then you grind it into powder format. So what you get is what we refer to as grog. So you get this grog. When you get this grog, you come and mix in some water, and it can act as an adhesive. And when you speak about an adhesive, let us look at things like glue. It comes and binds the surface together. So for embossing, I can get the grog and attach it to my decorative pattern I've done out of clay, and I join on the ideas, the designs. That's what we refer to as embossing. Then we can have another technique which we can refer to as incising. Incising is when the ideas or the designs, the decorative patterns, are placed deep inside the what? Inside the clay or pottery artwork. I've already spoken about the importance of such crafts. So these 5 sections is what we consider in assessing section B. But I want you to note, as we shall be looking at the different items, that a question can come when they are only asking for the steps. And a question can come when they are trying to speak about the different methods and the techniques. Or a question can come and they're trying to speak about the importance of such crafts. So, as a student, I want you to understand that whatever comes in section B of paper 1 falls under the different sections, different crafts, steps or procedures, materials and tools, methods and techniques, and importances. So you need to have an idea about the different crafts as I've already stated them above. Then to my dear ones who are asking about the formats, how can I now write up on this? Because I might be having the content, but then I don't know how specifically I can write about what has been asked of me. So on your screen, there is something I'm referring to as a note. Here, follow the same format of introduction, analysis, judgment as already discussed when answering this section as well. Remember, this is section B. But in section A, in regards to art history, I gave us an insightful way of how we can approach theoretical questions. So on the next slide here, I'm going to briefly speak about it. One, how do you break down your work? Or how do you break down your write-up? Specifically, we have 3 sections we consider. One is define the concept. Define the concept based on the scenario and reference photo to talk about the art form. This was for the art theory. But here let us consider the support material, then the message, that is the functionality, the elements and the principles. Then today they are telling us analyze, give your information in line with the concept and context. Then judgment, so conclusion, give your opinion or summary of your write-up. So what I'm going to consider here, if you have a pen where to write, I want you to write this. If you have a pen where to write, I want you to write this. The easiest way to break down any scenario, the easiest way to break down any scenario that has been presented to you in paper 1 is this. 1, first read the scenario. Read the scenario. Look at the support material. Let me show you something here. This is our scenario. So I'm trying to tell us, first read the scenario. Then after reading the scenario, look at the supporting material. After looking at the support material, put in consideration the task that has been given to you. So, in simple terms, what I'm trying to mean is this. Analyze the information that has been given to you. Analyze the information that has been given to you. I'm going to return back to that one. And also, after analyzing the information that has been given to you, understand the information. The most common mistakes students do when they are attempting such scenarios or such items in the examination, they come with crammed ideas. And when you come with a crammed idea, you are going to fail. You are going to fail. The fact is one, in this new curriculum, all questions, all items are similar to one another. But like I've said on, that section B considers different crafts. You need to have understanding of the different crafts. Don't come when something has already been crammed in your mind. In our previous facilitation of paper 2, I spoke about something which I want to refer to. If you have time, you can go back and refer to that facilitation and see what we discussed about. I gave us a scenario that I'm going to only read the task. That as an artist, you are required to create an informative artwork to help UNRWA and the Minister for Transport to communicate to the public about the problem. Here, in this task, they are speaking about a creative artwork. Create an informative artwork. Create an informative artwork. Let us take this as our task 1. I want to give us a scenario. I want us to avoid common errors where you come into a paper and you have crammed ideas, you have crammed answers. It cannot work out that way. It cannot work out that way. So the task is telling us, create an informative artwork to help UNRWA and the Minister of Transport to communicate to the general public. Then another task is inquiring us that using colors of your choice, design an identification symbol suitable for the club. When you look at these two tasks, one is already specific. They are telling you, create an identification symbol. That is one. Then the other task is telling you, create an informative artwork. The two differ from one another. However, both tasks are calling for you as a student to do graphical work. One is a creative, informative work, then the other is identification symbol. So when you come as a student, already crammed that everything you're going to do is under poster designing. Instead of creating an identification symbol, you're going to create a poster. And that is a common error, and you are going to fail that paper. You're going to fail that what? Task. So what am I trying to do here? Identification symbols are things like logos, things like badges, things like trademarks. That is identification symbol. But when you come to a creative informative artwork, it is open. That is to poster designing. That is to signposts. You can do anything that side. So, as a student, you need to analyze the information. Look at the scenario. Make, if possible, you can make a brief summary somewhere. Besides, that is analyzing the information. What is it about? Then I spoke about understanding the information. Analyzing the information, that is, you are considering the content, the concept, sorry. Then understanding the information, you are considering the what? The content. Then application of the information, we are considering the context. To highlight about the context, you need to look at what exactly are they trying to relate to. What situation is the task relating to? So we need to consider that. So let us rush into this scenario and we try to have an insight about it. Like I said, I wanted us to have first a general picture about studio technology. So in this sample item, we are having a scenario that is informing us that Pato has been doing tie and dye for some time. Last year, one of his colleagues advised him to try out stencil printing as another method of decorating fabric. The friend suggested that this could attract more customers. Pato now wants to try stencil printing, but doesn't know the procedure. So, a support material has been given about stencil printing. But when you look at this scenario, it is already specific. It is suggesting that what you are going to attempt is stencil printing. But there is also a possibility, where they're going to bring for you artworks without any suggested way out, and you need to identify and interpret what has been given to you. For example, let me read something for us here. Amla loves art, and in her environment, she collects and displays art pieces, both 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions, which she gets from different corners of the community. One time, she displayed pieces of art shown in figures I, J, and K. She received visitors, and they asked her to explain to them how these artworks are made and give some of their functions. Unfortunately, Amla could not explain to her visitors due to language barrier and little knowledge she had about the production process, and therefore she had to look for help from someone else, probably a student of art and design. Assuming you have been selected as a learner of art and design, and that you have studied about the production process of several crafts, explain in writing to the visitors what is required and how to produce one of these artworks, and give their or its functions. When you look at such a scenario, unlike what you have on your screen, in this scenario, as you're looking at these scenarios here, no, the support materials, sorry, when you consider them, you will find out that this scenario is not specific. The scenario is not specific. It is speaking about several crafts. And as a student attempting this item, you need now to have an understanding, like how I spoke about it earlier, that you have to know the different crafts, analyze the information. One, what are they seeking for? They are telling us here that they're looking at the production process. These are the different steps taken to produce the what? The artworks. But when you consider this, for example, if you are to consider an item here, when you consider, okay, let us have a look at this. When you look at this figure K on your screen, figure K is simply giving us a mosaic craft. It is giving us a mosaic craft. So it is now upon you to interpret, like how I've interpreted that what? Support material for us. So note this, that not every question is going to come when it's direct. Some questions are going to be indirect, like just as I've read this one for us. However, let me also read for us some other question. Another item. This one goes, art has not started now in most of our African homes. Some facts cannot miss to be there. A woven basket, that's a laundry basket, mat, pots, etc., as seen in figure F, G, and H, and are all over galleries or craft shops. This is what I'm having. Look at figure F. Figure F on your screen. That is figure F, figure H, and figure G. So as you're looking at that question, they're telling us art has not started now in most of our African homes. Some facts cannot miss to be there. Even if it has not started, some facts cannot miss that art is not in what? In our homes. So let us go direct to what the scenario says down here. Because of their uniqueness, with intricate designs and patterns, visiting tourists get attracted, admire, and fall in love with them, hence desiring to know how Africans come up with designs and forms, raw materials and how they are prepared. Unfortunately, the ones they find cannot elaborate or explain to them due to illiteracy or language barriers, hence seeking for help from someone knowledgeable. And the task goes: you have been selected as a knowledgeable person about these artworks. Explain in writing to the tourists what one of them, that is FG and H, means, raw materials, purpose, and how that artwork has been produced. So after looking at this, I've spoken about analyzing the information. And I said you cannot analyze the information unless you have come through from the first word to the last word. So they are asking you, make us a write-up about these items, about these crafts. In this question, unless the previous question, because in the previous question, which I read, this is the item 4. As you're looking at it, they only spoke about displayed pieces of art. That, as you're seeing it. When you come to the first one, the one I've showed you previously, they are telling us the different ways. So what we need to understand, that questions can come in different ways. Some can come specific, and others will need your what? Your interpretation. Let us go back to this scenario of Pato, and let us consider the response to the task. So they are telling us, as a student of art, guide Pato on the steps followed to create a stencil print. This is already a stencil print. Now let us first rush here, where we started from. Like I said, that studio technology focuses on the different crafts. That is one. I've already spoken about it and go where we started from. You need to have a different idea. Then it also focuses on the steps and procedures. It also focuses on the materials and tools, methods and techniques, then importance of such crafts. So as we are getting into these final hours, as we are preparing, this is what you have to expect. There is no magic in passing paper 1. Everything, if you have this idea, it has been suggested. I usually encourage students that passing is not hard. More so in this new curriculum. Passing is not hard. Why is it not hard? The same format of assessment, the same format of examination is what is put upon us, is what is given to us. There is nothing unique that is going to come. You need to know that, okay, this is the learning outcome focus. Exactly what you have been studying is what is going to come. So the task is calling for the steps, and that's what we are seeing. Steps. I've already identified the craft as a stencil print. Now, the task, they're inquiring of me to give the steps. When you consider this other item I put before us, as you're seeing it on your screen, they are looking at, you have been selected as a knowledgeable person about these artworks. Explain to the tourists. So you need to choose only one. The first one, we are seeing it falls under basketry. Then the next one, we are seeing it falls under weaving. Then the last one falls under pottery or ceramics. That is how simple it is. So you need to choose one. If you have chosen pottery, do you know the steps or procedures? Do you understand the materials and tools? Do you know the different methods and techniques? Then what is the relevancy of such crafts? That is the procedure for section B. And remember, you're only choosing one number. Let us look at this last part. So, interpretation, or response the task. So, you are saying, how am I going to introduce? Now, this is the last part. One, stencil printing is one of the methods of fabric decoration. It is where an image or design is applied to a surface by applying printing paste or pigment through a stencil or cutout. So, the following are the steps followed to create a stencil print. And this is a common error among students. We need to understand that they require a relevant introduction. A relevant introduction. Let me pinpoint out that one. A relevant introduction does not mean that you are going to make a full answer sheet of just an introduction. A relevant introduction is a focused introduction. You focus on the minimal part you have been inquired to make. That is a relevant introduction. For example, here, I don't need to come and say, since stencil printing is under printmaking and printmaking is under fabric decoration, there is no need for me to come and explain fabric decoration. As you're seeing on the screen, it is stencil printing is one of the methods of fabric decoration. That is enough. Why then should I come in and say, okay, fabric decoration refers to the process of adding beauty or decorative patterns onto fabric. As per task, that is not what needed. What the examiner will do is that they will put a long tick and they tell you that this is what? Seen. It is seen. And you're not going to get any mark on that. So go straight to how you have understood the scenario or the item that has been put before you. Consider the support material. It's the advantage we have in this paper, that a support material is given to you. It eases your analysis, it eases your interpretation. And above all, for this new curriculum, colored pictures, can you imagine? Colored photos are put. Maybe what I can highlight is this. At times they cannot bring an artwork, but then they bring the word article. When they speak about article is just a language of art. So you need also to be familiar to these terms. If it is not artwork, it is article. Article is the ARTICLE. It's the same as an artwork. So that is how a relevant introduction can look. Then next, let us look at the body. What makes up the body? The body, to simplify it for us, the body is determined by the task. For example, here, in this task here, I've already showed us some part. In this task, as you're looking at it, they are saying you have been selected as a knowledgeable person about these artworks. Explain to the choice what one of them, that is F, G, and H, those are the figures, means. What does it mean? Then look at raw materials, purpose, and how the work is produced. So literally here, they're looking at having, for example, if I'm to go for H, I'm going to say H is pottery or ceramic work. The material that is being, now I'm writing my introduction and post my introduction. The material that is being used there, it is clay. Then they're asking for the steps or the procedures of making the product. That's when I can come in with what? With the different. And now this one gets a bit tricky. We have, let me give an example of what I'm teaching about here. We have the stages of production. That is when we are making the final product. And we have steps of, or the process of clay preparation. It is okay for you, if you have time, to give us a clear understanding of how clay is prepared before it works. But then, You need also to be sensitive that you can go direct to the stages of production. As you're seeing on your screen, this is direct to the stages of production. One, they are telling us, get a source of inspiration. I think this one, all of us, we can understand it at this level. Something that is motivating you, something that is inspiring you. For example, if I'm to choose a butterfly as my source of inspiration, what is that I've loved about a butterfly? Remember, we have spoken about the different categories of crafts. We have functional crafts. We have decorative what? Decorative crafts. So when I look at a butterfly, I'm looking at how beautiful, how aesthetic it is. So what I'm going to consider, the patterns on it. So one, when I get the source of inspiration as the butterfly, that is one, I've already selected it. Then my step two, collect the required materials. For example, let me give us a hint here on the required materials. When you look at, let me get for us some materials here briefly so that we can rush through it. Let us have a look here. So, step one is source of inspiration. You need to identify, that's after analyzing. Then step two, they're telling us to collect our materials. To some of you, like how you're saying, you hadn't gotten an idea about the materials and tools. This is what we're having here before you. I want to show us some materials. These are tools. Tools, these ones are cutters. We use them to cut ideas or sharpen other tools you're going to be using. Then I'm having paste. This is paste, printing paste. You can call it ink, printing ink. It is also what? A material. Then this is what we refer to as a stencil screen or a stencil, where the final idea is cut before it is applied on the printer. I won't explain about it. Then we have fabric, where we print our idea. This is fabric. Then we have what we can refer to as a mesh. This one helps in minimizing paste or smudging of what? On our work. Then also we have a piece of paper where our sketches come in. So then we have also what we can refer to as a squeegee. This one is used in applying paste. So that is part of the collected materials. So what am I going to do right now? After collecting the materials, my next step is make relevant sketches and transfer on the plastic what? On the plastic sheet. So here, allow me get myself this. I'm having this on your screen if you're seeing it. These are some of how the sketches are coming. However, this is a senior one work. I'm not going to show, because this is now senior one standard. But this is what we are trying to see. Our source of inspiration here is an orange, as you're seeing it. Then you can have it in a way how you do your normal drawing. And briefly speak about it. You can say this is a study of an orange. That is what? That's the first sketch. Then we can have a graphical sketch. A graphical sketch, that's just the outline, the one you're seeing here, where there is step 2. That one. Then from that, you can have a last what? A last part where we included the patterns. Then this pattern is what we refer, okay, let me take it this way. This design is what we are referring to as motif making, or creating a motif. This last one here on your screen. So from that, they are telling us transfer on a plastic surface. You can transfer, you can design it, or cut it on this. You can cut it on a plastic surface. Then from cutting on a plastic surface, what we do, But what I advise my students do is this: get this paper, transfer the idea, the motif on another paper, then put your screen. After putting your screen, you come and cut out what? The idea. That's what I'm telling you. Carefully cut out the areas you want to print. And this is what has been what? Cut out this. Then from that, let the stencil on the what? On the flat surface. This is now the flat surface. This is now what we're having. Let the stencil on the flat surface as you're seeing it before you. Then you get a squeegee or a sponge, whatever brush, and this is what we're having. First, we're having a squeegee. Then from that, you can apply the paste. And from applying the paste, this is our last part. This is our last part. So after that, you can let the fabric dry. From the fabric drying, then after drying, you can either iron it to minimize any further distortions. So, and that is exactly what we are looking at the body. Remember, our item or our task was inquiring for the steps, and those are the steps. Then I want to advise us. Many times we love drawing, people doing this, whatever. Some of those things are irrelevant. They are irrelevant when you are attempting or answering questions. You don't need to come and design and you draw for me someone that this person is designing this, is cutting. No, that's irrelevant. Put focused answers. So that is part of our item presented to us. Then lastly, this is also where another error comes in. But if you follow the steps you have done, you can have a conclusion such as this. Stencil printing is a method of fabric decoration that involves a number of steps from developing motifs. I've already spoken about a motif. A motif is the smallest unit of what? Of a pattern. And a pattern is a repetitive decorative what? Design. So what we are having here was a pattern. So then carefully cutting them out on the plastic sheet before final printing it on the fabric, we have already seen that, and that's the conclusion. As simple as that. Then lastly, I've already spoken about this, the scenario. Let us understand it. This is a set of information that a learner needs in order to mobilize his or her knowledge to solve real-life problems, that is challenge or task, whatever. Then the support material is a reference image that is given to a student to offer us a sense of direction in the context of the item. When I spoke about the context, I said, what are we trying to relate to? I spoke about three things: concept, content, and context. So then a task is a set of instructions or action points to be undertaken by a learner. Remember this always, that any task in section B is going to be related to these 5 sections: different crafts, steps, procedures, materials and tools, methods and techniques, then importance of such crafts. Any task you are going to encounter or face in the examination is going to come from these 5 areas. It's going to come from these 5 areas. So be sensitive. Be sensitive. You cannot fail paper 1. You cannot fail paper 1 because it is already directed. So allow me stop here, and that has been our facilitation for the last section of paper 1, that is section B, where we speak about specifically studio technology. Remember that studio technology is the theoretical assessment of all practical artworks. So to our friends from Butaleja, I know you have been having a lot of questions, and you spoke about your location being far, that you couldn't access such information. I believe this facilitation is going to help us out. Then my brother from BIM SS, I know most of your questions also have been answered. Then I'm having my sisters and brothers from my country. Also, you guys have been having some questions. Hopefully, this one helps us answer some. Then our brother Samuel from Kenya, yeah, we are grateful. Our sister Whitney, thank you so much for sharing these questions to us, and I also call upon us. You can still share whatever you don't understand on our platform. Just as your friends have been sharing it, they get the questions, they share on our platform so that we can easily analyze them. So let us utilize the platform in such moments, and yeah, I believe we can make it. We can make it, and it is my prayer that God enables each of you, that the least or the last person can come up with, okay, B would be my perfect reference for any of us. Yeah, that one I believe. But if all does not go well, probably you can get a C. You can get a C. So we shall continually, I'm going to continually put up other sections. Now, what I'm going to do right now, since I've given us a flow of an entire paper, that is paper 1 and paper 2, in these last days, I'm going to specifically look at different sections. For example, one of you asked, I think it was Isma. Isma was asking about Renaissance art. I'm going to make a presentation about Renaissance art. I'm also going to make a presentation about the ancient Greek and ancient Roman art, specifically, just as we have in one of prehistoric art. So that's how I'm going to start making it in these last days, and I believe we shall pass. So this has been our presentation. I remain your coordinator at Art Students Connect, Uganda, and I call upon you to continually subscribe to our channel, the YouTube channel. It is Bindya Kenneth Art Students Connect. You can also search on Google. You'll find more. Just can search in Bindya Kenneth, and I'll bring for you more of our artworks and our discussions. So let me stop here, and I continually wish you success and shalom, shalom, shalom to you all.